Okay, why are you against mass immigration? What do you have against immigrants? Why do you not like immigrants? Or do you have a problem with immigrants? That's the kind of question you will get, you will hear now and again, especially for someone like me who makes videos like this talking about mass immigration and the problems associated with that. And probably some of you watching have had the same experience. And what you'll find is one misconception, and that's why I use the word mass in the title, okay? Mass immigration. Because very few people, including myself, and probably most of you or many of you watching, are against immigration per se, right? Like immigration itself is not, it's not really the issue. It's mass immigration, especially mass uncontrolled, relentless, imposed immigration, which is really what we've had the last 2 or 3 years, and we've had it to a lesser extent going back a few decades. That's what people have a problem with, okay? So, and even if you were to, ask people in nationalist spheres, ask them, are they against immigration or are they against mass immigration? Are they against mass uncontrolled immigration? You'll get a yes to the second question, but for the first question, you would be surprised, or maybe you wouldn't be surprised. I think you'll find that most of those people don't have an issue with reasonable, sensible immigration, small amounts of controlled, sensible immigration. It's not a problem, and in fact, most countries would struggle without it, including Ireland. There is this talk you hear sometimes, oh, close the borders, shut the borders, overnight. And the reality is anyone who's using their head realizes, that would crash the economy. That would be catastrophic, really, for the country, at least in the short term. And I'm not saying the country couldn't handle it. They probably could, but it'd be extremely difficult, and the knock-on effects, would be substantial, and it wouldn't really be in anyone's interest to do that, to be honest. Just being logical about it. So yeah, I'm not one of these closed borders people, but I am one of these controlled borders people, and just be sensible about it, really, Now, ideally, if a country really was run properly and had been run properly in the past, there wouldn't be a need for much immigration. You'd have small amounts of organic immigration and it wouldn't be a problem, and it wouldn't disrupt the country. It wouldn't impact really on resources or wages or rents or house prices to any degree, really, or any significant degree. And then you wouldn't have any so-called far right. They wouldn't exist, because, where did the so-called far right come from? They came because of mass, uncontrolled, relentless, imposed immigration, especially over the last few years, as we've seen the increase in the amount of protests and so on, as regards these imposed migrant centres all over the country. But, there was still definitely discontent there, and there was still people speaking up and against what was happening, understandably so, but it certainly wasn't to any the same degree at all as what we've seen in the last 2 or 3 years. So, like what's been done to the country and how the country has been so poorly managed and governed over the last few years especially, and going back to decades, but especially the last few years, this is directly why there is an element that you could call the far right or the so-called far right, okay? They were created by the mismanagement and, in a sense, the treachery of not just this government, but several governments going back over the last few decades, but especially the last government, who have really opened the floodgates completely and just totally disregarded the concerns, the wishes, the well-being of the ordinary people in this country. And that's not just Irish people, but foreign people also in Ireland are also suffering because of this, So, you might think, oh, this is like an ethno-nationalist argument. No, it's a human decency argument. That's what it is, really. And that's the situation we find ourselves in now. And this is why when someone says to me, which happens occasionally, not very often, but or even if someone sees these videos and then writes a comment, why are you against immigration? And I say, well, hold on, Do you think I'm against immigration? Or do you think I'm against imposed, mass, uncontrolled, relentless, year after year, especially in the last few years? That's what I'm against. And that's how any reasonable, fair, decent person should be against. And that's what it boils down to. And if you cannot recognize that basic point, then I can't help you.